Hi, my name is Leah Myers of Myers Design Studio, and today we're going to talk about a very quick scrap quilt idea. And I am today demonstrating this block. It's just made of squares, it's random. This one was made out of batik, so you can tell there's no right side to a batik. And I am designing this quilt to go with all my orphan blocks. Like this block was a basket block that I made that I didn't complete the project, so it's called an orphan block. And when you quilt, you'll start like practicing at different blocks, and you'll not have an exact project in mind, but you want to complete or put them in something someday. And this is the someday. So, but if you're a beginner, this is the block I am starting with, scrappy, just a square. And the next block, I will be making more of these because I need 3 more of these to finish this quilt. So, and this one's a little more advanced than this one. That one's just squares, and this is, you've got half square triangles. It's a little more involved, but not scary. It's a very easy thing to do. And when you're beginning quilting, you just build and build each time you create a new block or something. You just keep building. So anyway, here's my demonstration on how to make just this simple block. And if you are an advanced quilter, you might even want to do this because you have tons of blocks that scraps in your fabric stash to get through it. Anyway, so this is the one I'm starting off with today. And I will lay it out in this pattern here because, or what's it called? A diagonal pattern. Because I wanted this part of it to have a heavier weight to it because these are very bright. And then I want it to be up, a lot lighter with smaller blocks so that I could sash the blocks, to fit this 12.5-inch square. So you have most of the color here, and then as you go up, you have less of the color, and it has more of the background. And as you can tell, a lot of my background pieces are not all exactly white. Some of them are different, and that's great. That's what we want. We want this whole thing to be different. But anyway, here's my demonstration on how to make this block. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. So I basically have all of these laid out in a scrappy grid, trying not to have like blacks together or any of the colors matching. And I'm going to sew these all together in sort of a chain stitch fashion. And this is good practice if you're a beginning sewer, very good practice on how to match the seams in the middle. So let's get sewing. So now I'm just gonna pick up 2 at a time and straight stitch sew these together. So if you're beginning, and I have this piece of tape here because this foot is it's an 1/8 inch foot, I believe. And I have this tape I put here so that I have a 1/4 inch seam marked out. And it pretty much goes pretty quickly. And this is just for beginners. If you're beginning sewing or you want to get rid of scraps fast, I have a design that I'm going to show you that, oops, I didn't hold my threads before I started. So if you notice that this kind of curled, so when you start sewing, it's better to hold your threads before you start sewing, but I didn't. I was not doing that. That's not good. My tension's a little tight. So it also, see how it's puckering right here? I don't know if you can see it in the light, but it's puckering slightly. So I dialed down the tension just a little bit. Now I make sure the seam looks good here. If there's just a little bit of puckering, don't worry about it. Just keep going. You don't need to stop. And these are 3.5-inch squares that I'm sewing together. Just simple 3.5-inch squares. I cut these out of my scrap pile. I have an Quilt Go machine, a die cutter, and I like to cut my scraps up into squares so I can make stars and other things. But to really get rid of my scraps, I like to use the Go machine. It's just pretty quick. As well as that yo-yo video that I shot. I like to make yo-yos. Just depends on what I have. If I'm going to hand sew, I'll make the yo-yos, but it just depends on what I'm doing. So I'm just putting these all together, and it's quick. I'm halfway done. Halfway with this first part, and I'm just chain stitching these all together, picking them all up. And that tape really helps keep you in line. You know, you just stay in there. So if you're beginning, these are really good tools. Or if you're just sewing from if you're a more advanced sewer, this is a good way of getting rid of your scraps. You can sew these all together, and those scraps disappear quickly. But yeah, I like to use my die cutter to make these squares. You can just cut them by with rulers as well. But anyway, that's my first pass, and I'll stop and I'll iron these, and we'll do the second pass. Okay, I'm going to clip these apart. Clip them apart. Oops. Did a bunch of them already. And now I'm just going to lay them out. And what I find sometimes I don't have them in the same spot that I had them in, but that's okay. It's a random thing, random placement. So, and what I want to do is there's this seam is ironed this way. So the one next to it, I want the seam to be ironed in the opposite direction. So I'm going to iron this in the opposite direction. So that goes together. So that when you're sewing, your seams are in opposite directions. Like this. I'll get my fingers out of the way. In opposite directions like that. See, that one's going that way, that one's going that. And that's called nesting the seams. Now you can also sew this with the seams open, but I like to nest seams. So anyway, we're not doing that just now. We're going to lay these out, and I'll show you an even faster way to do that nesting trick. But right now we're just laying them back out. They're not going to go in the same order that I had them when I first showed you. It's just fine. The most important thing is you don't want them to touch my goal is so that they don't touch. It's not necessarily important. Nothing right now is, I like this one kind of in the middle. I kind of had that in the middle anyway, because I like the flower, but that one's right next to it. So where to put you? Then I've got a lot of white there. Okay, well, I'll just decide in a minute. Let's put this there. See, and it's all about deciding where you want these to go again. And this time it'll be more, like this layout will be more, you know, what you get in the end, pretty much. So now that I have these all laid out, I'm not going to worry about ironing the seams just yet, you know, on which direction. I'll do that in the next phase. Okay, now I'm going to do the next batch. I haven't ironed the seams yet. I'm going to do that at the end. But I do like to nest my seams. And this goes really quick. And if you're a beginner, start with just squares, because what you'll learn with just nesting squares, you'll learn how to make the seams match in the middle. And the more practice with that, you can get more complicated blocks. And this is just a skill building. We're building skills, right? Because if you're beginning, you may not, you could do a whole quilt with just these squares. And they don't necessarily have to be scraps. They can be, you know, coordinating somehow. You can make an around the world quilt, and I'll show you a picture of that. Around the world quilts are really fun. And that is all just squares. And it looks so complicated. And then after squares, you can build up to half triangles, which my next example will be stars made out of half triangles. Anyway, I'm gonna stop and clip my threads. And I'll be right back. Okay, I've clipped these all apart. And now, I think that one was on the end, but I'll just leave it there for now. Now I'm going to lay them out the way I think they should be sewn together. Oops. Oh, oh. Got a problem there. There we go. That's better. Oops, no. Oh, goodness. Okay. So maybe put him on the end, since I'm going to have, yeah, there. That's much better. So now I have it kind of random. I want it to look as random as possible. And now this is where I iron the seams. And I want to iron one way and then the other. And I don't usually have the whole block on the table. So let's see how this goes. So I ironed all the seams that direction on this one. Let me make that a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to move it over so I have room. And this one, I want all the seams to go this direction, so that they, and I sometimes iron this first. That's really the best practices. It isn't always what I do. I kind of go fast sometimes. But as far as practicing, you really want to, oops, I ironed that down, made a crimp, so that when you put this whole strip together, you have nesting seams. And you nest that. And I'm going to do something risky. I'm going to actually sew that. I'm going to put that over here with my sewing thing. Put that over there. So all my seams were going this way last time. Now I'm going to go up again, so that when I put these two strips together, they will go together and nest. And I find nesting seams when I can. Sometimes I have to press open. I like nesting seams better because when I go to quilt it, I don't have seams open on me. Okay, now these will go that way. And you can check often, because you can re-iron it the right direction at this point. You don't want to be at your sewing machine and have to turn that seam that's been ironed around so you can nest the seams. I just find it stronger, so I'm going to put these two together like that. I'm going to sew on this side. So I'm going to turn it that way. And now let's sew these all up. Okay, now I have my first set. Okay, turn it. I do like to sew it to where the seam is up towards the, but that's fine. I don't have to. What I mean is, if this was in the opposite direction going towards the foot, because that helps keep the seam together, but it's not always possible. Sometimes this happens. So when you're beginning, just know that happens. And the important thing is to make sure that those seams are nesting before you put them, and you'll feel it. It's gonna feel right to you somehow, some way. I am caught. There we go. I think I have it now. And it will feel, no, I don't have it. Giving me a hard time. What is going on? Are you on the foot? Oh, okay. It is the bottom. There we go. And we'll see how I did. Okay, and I make sure. And most of the time I pin these together just to make sure. This might come out sloppy. I'm being kind of cavalier here, not pinning these intersections. And let's see, I've got a little bit of ease there. Oh, I don't have a pin on me, so I'll just see if I can work that ease in. What I mean by that is there's a little bit of fabric on the top that looks like there's more fabric, and it makes kind of a little wavy. But I think I've got it. We'll see. All right, now let's do the next one. Oh, I did it again. I have all the seams pressed down. But the important thing is make sure you have those seams nested together, and it's smoother, and I think it goes over the foot better. It's making me nervous. I haven't pinned. I'll try to breathe through this. Uh-oh. Have I? Oh, I ran out of. No. What's going on? What is going on? Okay. All right. Stop. It's okay to stop. Something is not right here. What were we doing? Okay. It's still sewing. It's fine. Something was caught. So I'm going to clip the thread here. This is real time. Clip the thread. Something was gathering here. It looks like, I don't know what that is. Probably an extra thread somewhere I didn't see. Off of, okay, that does not feel right to me. I have messed with it. And that's the seams again. All right, that feels good. All right. And so if you've had to lift your foot up and you have to resew, just sew some overlap here so that it doesn't fall apart later on when you go to quilt it. So that was what I was talking about earlier about when you press the seams open. I've actually had pieces come apart while I'm quilting because I pressed open instead of nesting. And there is a trick if you are a person who likes to press the seams open, use a smaller stitch. But at the time of that, I did that. I did not know that you use a smaller stitch, or at least I didn't know that's how you solve the problem. So clipping, extra threads. Now I'm going to iron these open and and there we go. That's so good. And okay. So I've pinned each of the intersections and made sure that they were tight. And I like to pin just a little bit before. I used to pin right on, but I found that on the seam line, but I found that it doesn't work out as well as if I just do it just a tiny bit behind. That's just my technique. And also, I tried something new right then. I usually don't use pins, and I tried it, and I didn't quite make it. It's like a hair off on those, but it's not bothering me because I'm going to keep moving on. You know, it's a scrap block. I want to get this done. If I don't like it completely, I can take it apart, but I'm not at that point. Because these are all it's a very colorful block. And some of your seams will be hidden in some of the color. And if you're beginning, so you don't have to get discouraged if you're beginning. And if you're experienced sewer, this probably drive you crazy, but it doesn't drive me crazy. But anyway, needle up because the tension, oops, I was making me a liar here. The tension is released from the tension disc. And let's see how I did this time. I pinned. Oh yeah, perfect. All right, this is my finished block. This is one of the blocks that I use on the scrap quilt that I'm demonstrating. And I hope you enjoyed making this with me. The next block I'll demonstrate is a simple star block using all of my scraps. Thank you for watching the first block in the series of this scrap quilt that I'm making. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And thanks for watching to the end. Appreciate it. Bye for now.